who's joined us today. It's a smaller group today, so it'll be nice. We'll have lots of time for questions at the end. So we do monthly webinars, and we've done so all of this year based on topics that people want to hear about, mostly from people on Instagram, but also the clients that we see in our practice. And, one of the topics that has come up is just how to navigate the holidays and what are some strategies and tools that we can utilize that might make the journey a little bit easier. Because with IBD, we know IBD is hard alone, but then when you add in, eating in new places and traveling, there's all kinds of things that can come up. So yeah. And if you don't know who we are the Crohn's and Colitis dietitians. We are a team of 5 dietitians. We're all specialized in IBD, and we all have IBD also. And Rebecca and I do a lot of the webinars, and she has a lot of our patient load currently. And yeah, so we're here to give you a couple of tips that maybe you can use, and we'll have a lot of time for questions at the end. So, all right, you can go ahead and start, Rebecca.
Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Rebecca. If I don't know you, I'm also a dietitian of Crohn's and Colitis dietitians, and we thought it would be really fun to make this presentation more open, to where really hearing what you guys think, what your thoughts are, experiences are, because it just helps us to kind of understand, what is beneficial for you all, right? And everyone's really different with their IBD. So we're going to kind of look into that. I'm trying, I don't know if anybody wrote anything in the chat, but I'm trying to access that. Would I see that, Ashley, as a host? Oh, you're on mute, Ashley.
Oh, sorry. I don't see anybody's put anything in the chat. Have you seen anything pop up?
No, but can you guys just say something in the chat just to see if it's working, if I can see it? You can say whatever you want.
Just
whatever.
Hi. Okay.
Oh, cool. Okay. So chat. Yeah,
I can tell you if someone says something if you want.
Okay, yeah. I just saw that 2 things came in, but I can't see it. So
Sydney says hello.
Hi, Sydney.
You have someone that said glad to be here.
Cool.
Hi. Yeah.
I'm glad that you're here too. All right. So let's get started. I'm sorry. I had to laugh at myself. I'm like, let's get started. I press in, I hear like an error, Okay. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so just some questions to open up here. So why are the holidays a challenging time? And we would love to hear from you all what makes the holiday so challenging. And so these are some ideas that we kind of thought of, ways that can kind of create challenges for the holiday times. So things like food pressure. I know that when we're around family, it's very easy to feel pressured into eating something because we feel bad that, our family or friends made something, and it's like this feeling where we have to eat it, right? Because if we don't eat it, then we're not being respectful and we're not showing gratitude. And so there's a lot of meanings that we can kind of associate around that. And so that was kind of something that we thought of, some food pressure. Maybe something else could be the fact that we're uncertain about what to eat. So, of course, there's this idea lingering already. I have IBD, now what, right? Like, what am I supposed to eat? So on top of not knowing what to eat, now the holidays are coming with everything literally in front of our face. And it's just like, how do we navigate around that? What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to eat? So that could be even an extra challenge. Maybe feeling out of place. So that's actually a really common one too. Possibly, what's happening here with feeling out of place is that, you are feeling like I'm here with everybody, and I can actually say this, from a personal perspective, but watching everybody enjoy all these different foods and food combinations, man, I really want to add that is the fact that people are able to combine certain foods and feel totally fine. While maybe we feel a little bit like we're on the outside, kind of looking in and just really seeing everyone really enjoying it and not really sure how to react. What should we be doing, and so sometimes this could be very challenging. Traveling, so getting on a plane, we know that being on a plane with the cabin pressure can already exacerbate some IBD symptoms. And if you have IBS as well, which is very common with IBD, it can also exacerbate those symptoms. So traveling is definitely challenging by itself, because, you're also dealing with the roads, the traffic, getting on a plane, checking your bags in, like just all these people, especially during COVID, where we have to be, and the flu, and the RSV virus that's going around. So many things kind of happening right now that we want to protect ourselves, protect our families, and so that could be definitely challenging. And feeling misunderstood is a really big one too, right? So when we look at all these possible challenges, the biggest, or I should say, one of the solutions that can really help with facing these challenges is communication, right? And so when we think about, okay, well, I can try to communicate what's coming up for me and just being open and vulnerable about what's going on. But sometimes even in our communication, we can be misunderstood and it can be taken the wrong way. Some people can feel a little bit sensitive about it, or, still something's missing. So that's definitely a challenge on its own. And big one here, out of routine and loss of control alone, that could definitely be challenging, because we know that being out of a routine, I mean, how, and I would love to hear from you guys, and again, I definitely want to, hear your thoughts, out of all these, maybe what resonates most with you, or, what kind of comes up for you. But I know when we're out of routine, having IBD, routine is so important. It's like, we want to go to the bathroom the same time of the day. We want to have our meals the same time of the day. We want to be able to sleep, right? Have the same amount of hours of sleep. Like, it's just this, you want to get into this routine because you know that it's IBD friendly to be in a routine, rather than going to sleep at 2 a.m, waking up at 6 a.m, and everything is kind of chaotic. You know that your body will feel pretty sensitive to that. But these are just some common things that we kind of came up with of, how the holidays can be a challenging time. But I definitely want to hear Ashley's thoughts. And I also want to hear what you guys think too.
Yeah, type in the chat what your challenges are. What's your biggest challenge, or something that you're already maybe feeling a little anxiety about? I can say from my perspective, Rebecca and I are actually going to a conference next week. And we've already been planning and talking, and I've already expressed some of my anxieties. And, my anxieties are around, like, okay, if you're traveling somewhere, what are some, I like to scope out restaurants ahead of time and see what's nearby the places that will be, so that we can sort of be prepared to have like my safe foods, because so I've been in remission, but even still, I like to know what I'm going to get when it comes to my gut, especially if you're at conferences or enjoying time with family or on vacation. And when you change up routine or change up the types of foods and stuff, sometimes that can change up your bowel movements. So that's the other thing with like time changes or travel. I normally am very predictable with like morning bowel movements and all of that. But when you travel, it changes everything up. So then you're like, you normally plan to, go in the morning, and then when you're out and about, you're good to go. Traveling will change that up, especially like the first couple of days. So then you're like, okay, midday, I wasn't planning for that while I'm driving in traffic,
Yeah.
So that's my thing. And I definitely experience this when I have to get up earlier. If I have to change anything up, it changes and like not planned for it. So yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys think in the chat. Does any of that resonate? Type in out of the ones we mentioned, is there any that more so than the other that you kind of feel is aligned with where you're at? Are any of you traveling too?
Yeah.
So
Are any of you guys traveling for the holidays? Going anywhere?
James says, my biggest challenges are certainly uncertainty about whether I'm able to eat certain foods as well as self-control. My family is full of great cooks, and I have a hard time holding back on some of the incredible food.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is, that is a challenge to, there's like, so sometimes having clarity about it can be good about what really matters, what doesn't. And Rebecca and I did a really good, um, we've done it a few times, but we did one of these same webinars on what to eat for IBD. And if that helps at all, I would go to that one and I'll send it in the follow-up notes, but it can give you some good clarity about like the bigger picture, like what really matters, what can we, not stress about, what are the ways that symptoms can pop up more. But what do you think, Rebecca?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. First off, I can totally relate to what James is saying because, like my sister is a great cook. And while my sister has kind of her own things that she needs to be careful of with certain foods, she's still an amazing cook. And so some of these foods I personally can't tolerate. And I myself, I'm in endoscopic remission, and there are still some foods that are triggering for me, right? They still cause some irritation. So it can be hard, but what I do and what my sister already knows is that some of the foods that she'll make, like for instance, she makes and I know when you hear beans and rice, you just think, oh, beans and rice. But no, she makes it like really good. And what she'll do is when she makes the beans and rice, like if she makes my portion, she won't add in a few spices, but then there's other spices that I can tolerate. So, she does go a little extra, to help me out with that, where she'll make a different batch, or like if she's cooking vegetables, right? Like in some of them, she'll have oil, and then for mine, she won't put oil in them. And so maybe what you can do is, depending on your relationship, what it feels like for you, maybe you can also get in the kitchen and see how you can help so that you can make the meal very similar to what your family's doing, but just kind of alter a couple of things that won't agree with you. So just kind of tweaking it a little bit, but you're still able to enjoy the meal itself. And, of course, you're still with your family. So just a tip there.
We had two more questions, or two more people that commented. Amy said, we haven't traveled at all since diagnosis, so I'd love to hear how you all manage.
So that's a great question, Amy, because I'm going to share with you guys something, and I'm getting super vulnerable here too. And Ashley, this is back from, this was kind of your response too in relation to the conference. So I'm going to this IBD conference as well. And it was like this, oh no, like, what am I going to bring? Okay, before I leave, I'm going to have to use the bathroom, because if not, it's going to mess up my trip and I'm going to be so bloated, like all these thoughts, right? So the anxiety is real. And so, basically what I'm doing to help prep for this road trip is that I am already mapping out the nearest grocery store, so that what I'm gonna do is I'm going to get a cooler, and I'm going to put all the IBD friendly foods that I have in this cooler. So I got my dairy-free yogurt, I got my nut butter, and I think that's really all I need to refrigerate, maybe some fruit just to keep it cold. And then, and also my hummus. And so that will be like for my road trip. I got like, my siete chips. I got like a couple things that are just, things that I can personally tolerate. And then once I get to the conference, I was thinking I was going to make like a nut butter sandwich, bring my like Go Macro bars, just things that are safe for me to have, just so I have it. And then in the event, which this actually complements what Ashley was saying, because she's saying how she looked at some IBD friendly restaurants, or, restaurants that are in the area, it kind of complements like, what I'm doing as well. So if she found something and if I find like a grocery store or whatnot, we can kind of collaborate, and, we can kind of hit up these spots. So whether you're traveling on, in a car or on a plane, it is going to take some prepping and definitely, some organization to figure out what you want to bring. I would say to start prepping maybe a couple days in advance, just so that honestly, I would say maybe a week in advance. That way you have all these foods and you know where to go. And, something else that I also look into is a Walgreens nearby, or a pharmacy, and also a hospital nearby. It just makes me feel better, just so I know, like, okay, if I'm traveling, what if I need to get my hands on, prednisone, or like, what if something happens? So I just like to, cover everything, cover all my bases. So yeah, but everyone's different though. So
Yeah, that's really cool that I think that's a great way to manage anxiety, is to have all your what ifs covered. I think that helps a lot. Figure it out ahead of time, map out what would happen if you did this, what would you do? Um, yeah, and I think too, so Amy, I'm not sure where you're located, but we're in the US, and um when I've traveled to some places are easier than others. Like I actually found when I traveled to Australia, I found it way easier to eat there than I do some places in the US. So
wow.
like even in Houston where I live, I found traveling to Australia easier to navigate. They're way more educated around, food allergies. There's a lot more gluten-free options there, even on the flights and stuff. Like here in the US, I don't feel like people are as aware of food intolerances and food allergies. And so, for that reason, some places are easier than here. But yeah, that's in terms of what she said, I'm in New Jersey, but I feel like I can never leave the US, but I'm surprised to hear about Australia. You know what else I've heard is that Europe is quite a lot easier too. So if you're, I actually have a lot of anxiety, or have had previously a lot of anxiety around traveling outside the US, because when I was younger, before IBD, I was really into traveling. Like I flew to my first international trip was to Kenya when I was 17, and I did some work over there. And after that, I was pretty adventurous. So I like to get out and go places, and then went to, I went all over the place, Mexico, Israel. And when I got IBD, a lot of that changed. And even before IBD, I just noticed that I just had a lot of I got sick every single time, and so I didn't want to get sick. And so it kind of scared me to go to travel again. But I have been encouraged by a lot of our patients who do travel and have been able to go places with ease. So I think it just depends on where you're going, but it is possible to, if you plan things out and look in advance, it's easier nowadays to travel, I think. But Sydney also said, all of this resonates with me. Traveling and being out of routine is definitely challenging. It can be hard to balance eating different foods and managing pain.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. When we're out of our routine or out of our comfort zone, it gets tricky. But let's kind of look at the things that we can do, right? So first thing, yes, is to communicate. And so these are some tips that can be helpful. So when you communicate to the host of the party about your food intolerances, food allergies, etc., beforehand, this can be helpful for you, because it's, before you get to your destination, have the conversation with them, just kind of open up and share a little bit what's coming up for you and what's going on, and that could alleviate some of that anxiety that we have, or that that lack of control. Share your own favorite recipes, bring your own meals for yourself and or others. So like for instance, on Thanksgiving, I don't eat any animal protein except for fish. And I made this really awesome tofu recipe that tasted very similar to turkey, like the seasonings that's on a turkey for Thanksgiving. And, I made enough for others, and some people liked it, some people didn't, which is fine. But all in all, it was really good. And it was something that I do plan on making again in the future. And I knew that it was going to be well tolerated for me. And so it did give me still that control. I still had my control, which makes me feel better. And I know that I was going to do well with it. So maybe coming up with a recipe that you know is best for you. And then when you get to your destination, you can also prepare that recipe as well. Discuss with your loved ones how special it is to be with them and that you want to feel good and comfortable during your time with them. So communicating what this looks like for you. And I would like to know from you guys too, do you feel like this, could you see yourself doing something like this? Could you see yourself kind of sharing what's going on? And do you think that that would be something helpful for you to do? I'd love to know just kind of what the dynamic is like for you.
While they're typing stuff, I want to say, like, I can really appreciate that, like, just saying this. Like, I think we all kind of sort of can think these things, but it's a different thing when you're putting words to that. Because I know when I was first diagnosed, I don't think I knew, like, I didn't have the words of knowing, like, well, what would that look like to communicate that to people that care about me?
Mhm.
Sometimes having the words is really kind of that first step. Is it too loud?
No, 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 no,
Okay.
not at all. I'm raising my volume. Can you hear me? Because gets low and then loud. But
Yeah, I can hear you.
okay.
Yeah. Curious if you guys have you guys had this type of conversation with people before where, I mean, it may not even be around what you eat. It could be just around your disease and um around your disease and what you can and can't do. Could be stuff like that too.
Yeah, I think, and I would love to hear also like Ashley, well, do you feel comfortable, Ashley, like talking to others about that, like communicating, hey, I know you're making this meal. I think I'm going to bring my own dish, or like, have you been in that situation where you've had to say something like that?
Yeah. And, for me, sometimes people didn't quite understand at first, like what, and I didn't even know how to articulate IBD for the first couple years, especially. And so I would just say, I have special dietary needs, I would start with that, or I have some food intolerances or food allergies. And sometimes that was an easier, comfort comfortable way of talking about it, to where I didn't have to always go into explaining I have
Mhm.
IBD, this is what it is, it's not IBS.
Right.
The whole spill that we do, everyone. You know how it goes.
Yes.
um
Yes.
yeah, so sometimes I just kind of learned, okay, I feel more comfortable talking about it this way if I don't want to get into it, but if it's someone that I'm really close with, I would go into it more and talk a little bit about it. But yeah, I didn't feel comfortable at first doing that, but over time, now I absolutely do. I talk about it all the time. It's easier to talk about it because I have words to speak to it. But that
Yeah.
took a long time.
Yeah.
But so Amy said some people don't understand at gatherings. So I've used an easy way out, like I'm allergic to things. Okay, so you too, you understand what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Especially at restaurants, I found like I'm not going to tell people about IBD, a waiter about my whole story, so I'll just say, no, I can't do that. I'm an allergy or an intolerance. And that is an easier way. And they are more cautious and they take it more seriously when it's an allergy.
That's a really good point. That's a good point. Because when I'm at a restaurant, I'll say, like if I order fish, I always ask for poached. But what I'll tell them is I have a digestive disorder and I can't digest oils. So I'll say, can you please make this poached, really well done, super dry. Like that's just how I like it. And and they don't take it seriously. And so hearing you say, if you say it's an allergy or something like that, then it's like, ooh, this person cannot have any oils. No oils for them. Maybe I need to do that. Yeah.
And we're not saying that all oils are bad, but she's just speaking to her own
This is my
her, because I know people will ask about that. But yeah, and I've actually tested this out too. So like when I go to my favorite smoothie place, there's one smoothie that I really like that has coconut oil in it, but I don't do coconut oil for the reason that it's identified as one of the kind of foods that we don't want to have high in the diet with IBD. And so I'll ask them, can you take out the coconut oil? And then I've also tested it with, I'll ask like, I remember this one time I had asked them to take out the coconut oil, and I usually tell them I have a coconut allergy just so I can be sure that they're taking it out. But I didn't one time. And I asked someone just to verify once I got the smoothie, did you put coconut oil in it? Or there's not, I said, there's not coconut oil in this, right? And he said, no, I don't think so.
No.
And so I was like, I should have asked, is there coconut oil in that? So that, because, it is, or just told them like, hey, I just cannot do this. Yeah. So
was there coconut in it?
There was definitely coconut oil in it.
Oh no.
I could see it on the side, but I was like, okay, well, yeah. So this is an example. Yeah. Amy, I know you said I didn't know about coconut oil. Yeah. If you look at the webinar we did previously called What to Eat with IBD, we talk about all the different foods that are identified that we don't want to have a lot of in the diet. So they're not necessarily things that are going to cause symptoms always, but they are things that we know are linked with flares when consumed in large amounts. So the webinar it's actually on, it's on YouTube. So I'll look for it and put it in the chat shortly. And then we'll also send it out. When we send out this recording, we'll send out that one too. And Sydney said, people around me are generally accommodating, but I find it challenging not to feel like I'm inconveniencing others or making things difficult. Do you have any words of encouragement?
Yeah, I understand that, Sydney, too. Yeah, and these are all really great responses. Yeah, it's hard because we're trying to help ourselves, but we're also we want to make sure that we're not putting anything on anyone else. Like we don't want to be difficult for others. And so, it is important though to communicate these thoughts to your loved ones so that, they are aware and that, you don't feel like it's something difficult because you're communicating about it, and you also don't want to feel bad. You want to enjoy the holiday and you want to enjoy the activities that you're doing as well. So, definitely remind your friends that it's nothing personal, or your family members, like it's nothing personal. It has nothing to do with you. It's not that I don't like the food. I love the food. I just, and just kind of explaining into your own comfort level, whatever's comfortable for you. It's just that, when I eat this, it doesn't make my stomach feel well. And I want to have a good time with you all. I want to have fun. And so maybe just talking about it and communicating that will be helpful for the other person to understand where you're at also. And remember to not force yourself to do something that you don't want to do or will cause a high amount of stress. And so, what that looks like could be, let's say there's a gathering and you really just don't want to go. Like it's not, it has nothing to do with the fact that, you don't want to see anybody or it's not that you don't want to deal with like, whatever it is, like food or whatever's happening. Maybe you just really don't want to go. Like you just want to be home. You're not really, up for anything right now. You just want to hang out. That's okay. You don't need to force yourself. Give yourself time to just kind of feel whatever it is you're feeling. And if people reach out to you because they're concerned or they want to make sure you're okay, communicate with them, and obviously this could also be very helpful to process with your therapist if you do have a therapist, which we highly recommend that you speak to a therapist, especially when you have IBD. Just remember not to cause a high amount of stress on your body or yourself.
That's really well said.
Oh wait, I told you guys I'm not good at this. Ashley, you want to take this one?
Yeah. So, one thing that can really be helpful is, educating others about our IBD. So, explaining what Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, microscopic colitis is, and what it means for you. So your diagnosis and how that can affect you over the holidays. So you can also kind of do some education around, trigger foods, what a trigger food is, how that can impact your life. You can talk about the unpredictability of nature of IBD. So I think that sometimes we forget that people who love us, they want to know more about us. It's an honor to know more about you. It's an honor to know more about what you're dealing with. I mean, think about your loved ones, like your family or friends. Wouldn't you want to know, what's going on with them, what they're dealing with, ways that you could support them and love them better? I mean, when I think about that, when I frame it that way, instead of feeling like I'm worried about being a burden, I don't know what's going to happen. When I look at it from the perspective of people that I love, I absolutely want to know what they're dealing with. I want to know how I can help. I'm always looking for ways, but it is harder when you're the person, right? And we often go down this spiral of concern for how we're going to impact. But I would say if you're able to try to shift your frame of reference to imagine it from their point of view, imagine it from someone who loves you. They absolutely want to know. So actually helping them understand better can be a really great way to deepen the relationship, to allow them opportunities and ways that they can support you, and will bring you closer often if you can articulate this. It is a vulnerable thing to talk about these things with people. So obviously make sure that you're talking about it with people that you trust. But with being vulnerable in those types of relationships that are safe, it just creates this opportunity for growth and deeper relationships. So keep that in mind. It is scary and it is hard. Was it Sydney? I think Sydney was talking about it. It is absolutely hard. And vulnerability with others is hard, but it is worth it too. If it's worth it, if you have safe people in your life that care about you, it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Something that I really got from what you were saying, Ashley, is that it can deepen the connection and relationship with that person that you're opening up to. It's always nice for other people to kind of get into your world and to know what's kind of going on with you, because you don't want to be kept a secret, right? And maybe you might realize and learn something about this person that you thought otherwise, right? Like the fact that maybe we don't want to be a burden to others or complicate things. Maybe if we expressed how we felt or what was coming up for us, maybe the response would be, thank you so much for telling me this. I'm really happy you're sharing this with me, because now I know for now and in the future when I make, meals or if I'm hosting something, it allows me to understand your diagnosis a bit better. And it could really create a lot of possibilities, which could be a really positive thing. Yeah.
I want to add to, I mentioned this on our podcast that one of the things when I was first diagnosed, I didn't want to tell anybody. Like it was just going to be like the thing that I knew and my doctor knew, and that was it. I didn't want to tell anybody. But later on, I opened up about it to people. And let me tell you, it was like the best thing. It is the best thing so not everyone is going to go this far, but I had a friend who she planned out all the meals we're going to have. She made sure it was friendly and I wasn't going to have a hard time with it. She went all out, and it meant the world to me that she did that. And, so just look at it as opportunity, to, for people to understand what's going on with you. And it doesn't have to be as bad as it is in your mind. Sometimes I imagine things to be like, way, way worse than they actually are. They could actually go well too. So that's the other side of it.
So some meal alternatives. Finding alternatives to your favorite meals can make the holidays still enjoyable and feeling included. So, like for instance, over the Thanksgiving holiday, I can't eat apple pie and other things because ulcerative colitis doesn't like it. I like to call her Ursula, like from The Little Mermaid. So yeah, Ursula doesn't like it. So I made a fruit pie, and it was made out of tofu and berries and dates, and it was really delicious. And other people also liked it, and some other people didn't like it, but that's okay. Again, so it's a whole learning process, but there's a lot of alternatives, which is really cool. You can find recipes for cookies, cakes, pies, entrees, beverages. There's so many things that you can have. And what's really cool is that you kind of learn how all these foods that are out there, you can make so many different things out of them. I mean, at one point we always thought, oh, vegetables mean salads, right? But we know that you can prepare vegetables in numerous ways, right? You can make a dessert out of them. You can make so many things out of them. So just remember that there are a lot of alternatives, and there's still so many things that you can have. Recipes and resources, looking up online and at the bookstore, Amazon, there's always a lot of great options out there for us to see and learn from. Have them join you, which is what I'm always about. If I can't do what they're doing, then have them join my world into what I'm doing, and maybe they might learn something. Maybe they'll say, hey, I really like that pie you made. Can you make that again? Sure. So it could be something fun to just kind of repeat and do it again. And when you include everyone, kind of what Ashley was saying earlier, when you include everyone you love, they're able to be a part of your journey. And that's what this is. It's a journey. And so you're opening your world up to others so that they can join you. And question that we have for you all is, what are some of your favorite holiday recipes? So some of my favorite is that tofu pie, berry pie I was telling you about, and avocado truffles. They're really good. But what do you guys like? Oh, Ashley, you're muted.
Oh yeah, I just noticed that. Yeah, let us know in the chat what your favorites are. I actually did a fruit pie too, Rebecca.
Ooh.
I did a homemade crust. So I've been going all out. I made I've been making my own cashew butter. I don't know if you saw that on
Oh,
Instagram.
I did see that. That looked really good.
Yeah, and I put it into the crust. I made
Ooh.
a crust, and then I just put I took some frozen peaches and cherries, and I warmed them up and put them on, mixed in
Wow.
some starch, and made a pie.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds delicious. Yeah, I think Ashley, I think you need to post these more on your on the Instagram,
Instagram.
on the grid. Yeah, I want to see photos of them. That sounds cool.
No. And I'm kind of the kind of person that doesn't do just thinks of recipes, I'm not much of a recipe follower all the time. So I need to do that. I don't see anything in the chat though. So
your meals always look really good.
thank you. So Amy said, do you have a tofu pie recipe online and avocado truffle? It's cold here. So I mix almond milk, one date, and Vita, and mixed it, warmed it, and added cinnamon powder. That sounds good. Oh, Vitamix. Oh, I love
Vitamix. Yeah,
Vitamix.
that sounds delicious. I love
really
it.
good.
Yeah, that sounds really good. The pie that I use, the recipe, so there's this book. I don't like the title of it, but it's called the How Not to Die book. It's a cookbook, and it's written by Dr. Michael Greger, and you can find it on Amazon. Make sure though that you get the recipe book and not his book. because I know that that's happened before. So yeah, so it's called the How Not to Die cookbook, and he also has another one called the How Not to Diet cookbook. It's basically, all cooked plant-based meals, really delicious. They have a truffle recipe on there too, and they have that pie on there. So it's a great resource. Yeah. Yeah.
We should start doing some recipes on our blog too.
Yeah. Oh,
That would be good.
Yeah, that would be fun. So we want to focus on what you can have, right? Rather than what you can't have. So things like softer textures and amounts, we know that that's going to be helpful for us. Depending on where you're at with your IBD, it can always vary. Engaging in different activities, if needing to rest before go out, consider that, right? Consider a light nap that will not affect your sleep. It's fine if if you know that you have an event coming up and you need to just relax and just hang out for a bit. That's fine. It's what your body needs. Be sure to get an idea of what kinds of foods will be served and see how you can also be a part of the preparation. And this kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, right? So, focusing on, the things that you can have and how you can bring that into the mix with your family and friends. And there are still a lot of things that we can do. So while, a lot of times, yes, food is kind of the center as far as foods go, culture goes, just kind of the celebration, food has a lot to do with that. But even if there are a few things that you can't have, remember that there's still a lot that you can have. There's a lot of alternatives that you can do. And, remember too, that there are other things that we can do as well, right? Like playing games, having fun, karaoke, Guitar Hero, if that's still a thing. There's still a lot that can be done. So remember that we're not super limited. So we don't need to put ourselves in this little box. We can always get out of the box to what's tolerated for us. And remember that it's also okay to rest again if you're not up for going out. So if your body is like, you know what, it's just not able to do what it wants to do tonight, that's fine. Maybe you just need to chill on the couch with a nice blanket and some Netflix, and that is 100% okay. Yeah. Are there comments in the chat? I know I can't see them, but I see.
Yeah. She also said, sorry, one more thing. How do I know if tofu is tolerable? I haven't had it since diagnosis. Should I saute for five to 10 pieces? I mean, with tofu, unless you have an allergy, generally it's tolerable, and there's some evidence for it helping to reduce inflammation within the colon. Plus, it's a legume, so you get a lot of the benefits of that. So can help with promoting more butyrate in the gut, which can help with reducing inflammation. So, I mean, there's two types of ways to think about tolerance. There's, do you tolerate it from a symptom standpoint, or is it tolerable from is it going to be beneficial or harmful, right? From that standpoint, it's beneficial, but is it tolerable? That may vary a little bit from person to person, but generally, tofu is, in my experience, has been pretty tolerable with people.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts, Rebecca?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it has a softer texture, it is easily digested. You can put it in a smoothie. So maybe that could be a good way for you to start out, is just by adding it into a smoothie to get kind of comfortable with it, let it blend up so that you can kind of get the feel for the tofu. But it is generally well tolerated. Mm-hmm.
So Amy mentioned, we'll try it out. I'm just scared as I am new to IBD.
Yeah, no, and I definitely get that. And because you're new to IBD, it's important to, make sure that you have your team, your dietitian, your physician, your therapist, so that you feel that support. Because when you're newly diagnosed to IBD, it's really crucial to have that support system, because they help you kind of navigate the diagnosis, accepting the diagnosis, just kind of understanding what's happening. And yeah, but we definitely understand that when you're new. I mean, I've been diagnosed for a year now, and sometimes it's a year is nothing, right? I mean, it's you're still kind of new to it, so things kind of pop up, but you'll get the swing of it. You'll get to know your body a little bit better, and just take it day by day. Don't rush anything. You just kind of go through it. Um, and last but not least, have fun. So it's important to have fun. Prepare in advance. So remember to communicate, educate, express yourself, right? And really being open and vulnerable to those that you love, because they love you, and they want to be a part of your world also. So, just feeling comfortable as what's comfortable for you. Engage in activities, so non-food related and as tolerated. Maybe you play a game, card game, if that's easier than doing like what's that dance thing? It's like when you step on the pads.
Oh, Dance. Is it Dance
Dance
Revolution?
Revolution. Yeah, some people have that at home. Maybe we're not. I know I can't do that right now, but maybe bouncing all over the place is not like the great place for maybe your body's not ready for that right now, and that is completely fine. Maybe having a nice conversation with some warm tea is where we're at right now. So, or maybe you're into playing a game, conversation game, whatever it is. Wherever you're at is fine. You don't need to push yourself or pressure yourself. Just remember that. Be around people who are uplifting and you feel comfortable with. That's really important, right? And so you'll kind of learn too, as you kind of go through your journey, wherever you're at, you kind of realize, I don't know if I want to put my energy being around this crowd, but I do want to put my energy being in that crowd because that makes me feel good. So, be around people that are uplifting, that make a positive difference in your life, things that are good, healthy, happy. Those are the people that we want to surround ourselves with, not the people that are going to make us really stressed out. And, if you do feel stressed, because that is a common emotion that we get as human beings, it's important that you process that stress, right? And so that's why I cannot emphasize enough to have a therapist as part of your team so that you can process those feelings. Remember too that there are alternatives to the foods that you like. So there are, let's say you don't eat gluten or dairy, which is pretty common in the IBD community. Remember that there are alternatives if needed. Remember that, there are alternatives to a lot of foods that we love. And most importantly, be you, be who you are. Okay. And yeah.
So I know we're going to go into questions next.
Mhm.
So if anybody has questions, you can go ahead and start typing them in the chat. And while we wait for them to come in, I wanted to share a tool that I use that I find really helpful in stressful moments or especially during the holidays. Holidays bring up a lot of stuff for us, right? It's not only the stuff that we talked about, it's also like the expectation of a holiday and going back to see family, or you may or may not have a good relationship with your family. But there's a tool that I use, and we've talked about this on our podcast. It's called RAIN. So it stands for, I'm reading it right now. So recognize what's going on. That's the R. Allow the experience to be there just as is. The I stands for investigate with kindness. And the N stands for natural awareness, which comes from not identifying with the experience. So it's, if you have something difficult coming up. So I think when we talked about it on the podcast, Rebecca, I think we were talking about colonoscopies because colonoscopies are a great place to try out RAIN. I have a lot of anxiety around colonoscopies, so I recognize the feeling. So recognizing that anxiety is present, allowing the experience to be there, allowing and accepting what is, which is I have anxiety about going, and I have specific anxieties around how I'm going to feel after. And not trying to change it. So not trying to be happy about it or trying to find the silver lining, just kind of letting it be. And then investigating it with kindness. So that means like digging deeper. Where did this anxiety come from? Where does this fear start? What am I really worried about? And just digging deeper and trying to understand it. So not dismissing it. And then a natural awareness really means just not identifying completely with it, noticing that the feeling is, it's kind of like when you're driving in a car and you have a passenger, like that's the fear anxiety part. That's the part that's like, it's riding next to you. It's not driving the car. It's just with you. And we're not pretending it's not there. We're just saying, okay, I see you, I acknowledge you, but I am not you. And so that's what that one is. And this can be so helpful when you're, when you're going some places on the holidays or you have a tense moment with family, just acknowledging and leaving space for the feelings that come up when we're in tense or difficult situations. Especially, if you're newly diagnosed or if you're in a flare, it can be really, really helpful to have tools like this because there's a lot of feelings that come up when you've got IBD or you're in a flare. It's quite, I feel weird saying normal, but it's quite common to experience more anxiety, a little more of a lower mood when you're in a flare. So just leaving room for that and letting it be okay and fine that you're whatever you're experiencing and feeling.
I really, really like that, Ashley. I really like that, and that the RAIN, the acronym. I think it's super, super helpful. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to practice it with us, we can take you off mute. You can share a scenario with us of something that you're scared about, and we can try it out. We can try naming the emotion. Or if you want to ask any questions around, it doesn't have to be about the holidays. It could be about IBD, it can be about nutrition, it can be personal questions, whatever it is that's on your mind, we're happy to answer. And I'll go into this and wait and see if we have any other questions, but so some ways you can connect with us. So we actually have these monthly webinars / hangouts, whatever you want to call them, every Wednesday of each month. So typically it's the last Wednesday of each month, but it gets a little different on holiday months. So the next one that we have is on the 21st. And the next one that we have will be more of a Q&A style, more interactive. And then we'll get back into our regular routines in January where we cover a lot of stuff like fatigue, nutrition, more of that kind of thing. And then we have a free podcast called Gut Feelings Podcast, and you can check that out on Apple and Spotify. And then we have lots of free content on blogs and Instagram where we tackle a lot of stuff, a lot of commonly asked questions. And I think we had someone say, thank you so much for this. You're welcome. Yeah.
You're welcome.
It's great to be able to connect with all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's everybody from in here? I know, believe Amy said New Jersey, I think. What was Amy? Yeah. We also if you'd like to work with us in any capacity, or you'd like to just even explore what that would look like, we have a few different ways that we work with people. So for people that need a lot of support, maybe they're in a flare or they have a very severe case, or they need a lot of guidance, we do work with people a little more longer term and individualized through a 6-month program. And then if you're not looking for something that intensive or just looking for some guidance around what to eat with IBD, what type of supplementation has evidence, nutrition deficiencies, kind of understanding the ins and outs, we work with people in the context of a shorter, it's like a 3-month program. So feel free to, if you're interested, I'll send out an email after with this recording and also a link to apply for a call with us. And then Amy is asking, do we work with teens? If so, how many teen clients do you have? Yes, we do. We've worked even with some kids too. It's a case by case basis. How many teens? I don't know how many. We see like hundreds of people every year. I haven't really counted. I would say less than adults for the reason that there are more adults diagnosed than there are kids and teens. But I know Rebecca has a few right now. I think you have a few.
Yeah. And they're
Yeah.
super fun.
Yeah.
I love my teens.
I do too. We love working with that age group because yeah, and we've had quite a few more, especially this year. So we've actually thought about maybe creating a separate program just for that age group so that people can connect with one another if they want to. Yeah. So I'd say we have a fair amount, considering that not most people are diagnosed between 24 and 34. But we have a good amount of teens that considering that, and we've worked with quite a few. And they're asking, are they on biologics? Some of them are.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I have someone right now who is, he's pretty young.
We had someone also who was on a biologic, high school. Yeah, all ages. All ages.
Amy said, have you had people in general that was able to reduce biologic eventually? Usually in my experience with people on biologics, usually the transition is more around if it's working, usually they stay on. If it's not working or they develop antibodies, then they switch or they may come off and do something different. So that's been my experience. What about you, Rebecca?
My experience with biologics is that what I've seen usually long term, I know somebody who had their GI doctor had them de-escalate their Humira. So and this person has ulcerative colitis, so they're actually no longer on Humira. It's a little bit of a tricky situation, but it's, everybody is different. And so it's just that, I mean, when it comes to medications, that's a discussion that you have with your GI. So yeah, but usually medications are long term.
Yeah. And the goal is like obviously get to a place where get to one that works for you. And like Rebecca was saying, that part is really individualized, just like nutrition can be, because we each have different pathways, so to speak, of inflammation. And so that's why, one biologic might work well for one person and not for another. It's because we are all really are different in terms of how our disease is, even though there's a lot of similarities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions, but yeah, I would love if you guys are on Instagram, reach out, tell us what you thought. If you have any other ideas on, further topics that we cover, feel free to reach out. We take these seriously and we put them into webinars and things we educate on. So feel free to reach out with anything or just say hi.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here, and we'll hopefully see you next month.
See you guys. Thank you for coming. Have a wonderful holiday. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Happy Hanukkah. Any holiday you celebrate, happy. Bye.